Well, good morning, everybody. I didn't plan on actually getting emotional, but I'm starting to down over there. A couple things. Again, if this is your first time here, hi, my name is Eric. I'm about to be off for 7 weeks, so sorry. Couple things with people have been asking me a lot, like how I feel going into sabbatical, and a couple months ago was a different answer, but my answer recently has been I am really excited, and here's why. I'm excited that it's going to be a time where we as a family can just relax and feel refreshed and renewed, so that I can come back after 7 weeks better than ever, closer to God than ever, ready to continue to lead this church. But I'm also really excited because I'm not worried about leaving for 7 weeks at all. We have a great board here that has been planning this for a while and making sure that we are ready. We have, you guys, there's an amazing staff that works here. I know I get a lot of focus. I'm the lead pastor. The staff that's here does so much more work than what we ask them to do, and they've been doing it for a long time. And I am so excited because I know that they have it covered. In fact, I think, not only do I think we have to this is going to be a season where we're getting past 7 weeks and I'm coming back, we just have to survive these 7 weeks. I don't believe that is happening for these next 7 weeks. I believe that this next 7 weeks is going to be the best season we've ever had as a church. I really believe that. I believe I'll come back healthier, and you guys will be healthier, and there'll be new people here that I won't know and I have to get to meet because there's an amazing staff here. So thank you for allowing me to do this, and thank you. I hope you all stick around so that way we can say our byes, and then we'll be back. So with all that, I got one more sermon I got to give, and then I'm out of here, guys. So. Just kidding. So we're in we're finishing up our series, Death to Deconstruction. If you haven't been here, I highly recommend you go back and listen back to all the sermons. This has been a longer series, but we've been talking about deconstruction. And deconstruction is the process of questioning and dismantling your beliefs. It is the process of questioning and dismantling your beliefs. Jesus says in Matthew chapter 7, verse 13 through 14, that we are supposed to enter through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate and broad the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. And each week we have talked about a different great predator for our faith, that if we are not careful, these great predators can actually harm our faith or even take away our faith. And here were the great predators we've been talking about. We talked about biblical illiteracy. This is the first one we talked about. We talked about the problem of evil. We talked about politicized faith. We talked about hypocrisy. And then today, we are going to talk about the message of Jesus, which is very hard for some of us to live out, and that is self-denial. Self-denial. Have you ever met a Satanist before? I actually have. It was a guy who used to go to our youth group, and he decided he didn't want to go to youth group anymore, and he went the opposite way. He became a Satanist, and then he would start to come around, and I would ask him some questions. I've never even heard of a Satanist before, really. We normally think of Satanists as in the horror movies where it's dark and evil occult people. That's really not what a Satanist is or what they believe. In 1969, Anton LaVey wrote the Satanic Bible. And the core theme of the Satanic Bible is this. Here's the core theme. Do what thou wilt. That's the core principle of Satanism. Do what thou wilt. It's the whole point of it. There's no need for a higher power in the Satanic Bible because we as people act as our own gods. Do what thou wilt. Marilyn Manson has quoted this about Satanism. He says this, "To me, Satanism was never about worshiping the devil. It's about man being his own God on earth. You do not worship anything except yourself." Now, basically, no one, for the most part, would confess to be a Satanist or confess to have these views. But we actually hear things very similar to the do what thou wilt all the time. In fact, a lot of us kind of believe some of the similar things of do what thou wilt. Here's what it sounds like in our culture. Instead of do what thou wilt, it sounds like this. My heart is the ruler of all my being. Live your truth. Follow your heart. The heart wants what the heart wants. Here's the biggest one. Be true to yourself. And these sayings all sound good. We think yeah, these are good sayings. We should live by those. How could these sayings be wrong? It sounds right. But what self are we actually being true to when we say, be true to yourself? Because maybe it's not you, but I have a mix of different desires in my heart that I have to constantly combat. I want to spend time with my family and read and do things that are very productive. And at the same time, I want to be lazy and do nothing and sit around. I want both are me. So which self do I be true to? I have a desire to wake up early and get things done. I also have a desire to stay up late and watch YouTube all night long. I have both desires. Which one is me? They both are. The presupposition built on the be true to yourself thought is that you are fundamentally very, very good. So the best thing you can do is find out exactly who you are so that you can be the best version of you, because when you find out your true self, that's the best possible option. That's the best way to live. That's the message our culture preaches. That's the message we all, including myself, want to believe. We want to believe that. But no one actually really lives that out, not fully. Because if we decide to be true to ourselves and to follow what our heart says to create our own identity, here's what we have to do in order to do that. We have to go into our feelings. What do our feelings tell us is true about us? Well, what's the problem with that? The problem is our feelings contradict each other all the time. There are times I really like someone and times where I really don't. There are times where I feel really disciplined. There are times where I don't. There are times when I really enjoy things and there's times that I don't. Our feelings contradict each other all the time, and they're all in us. And at the same time, our feelings don't last. You can have feelings today that in a month you don't have those feelings anymore. There's no promise that you will have the same feelings tomorrow. So if we are deciding who we are and we're basing our identity on our feelings, because, hey, the best thing you can be is yourself, be true to yourself. If you are doing that based on your feelings, you are using contradictory feelings that might not be here tomorrow in order to do it. So your feelings aren't really who you are. You choose the feelings that you want to be. So your identity doesn't come from your feelings. It comes from the feelings that you choose. That's what it comes from. So no one can actually follow your heart, and no one can actually be true to yourself. You can follow what you decide in your heart, and you can be true to what you want to be true while ignoring the other part of you that is also true. You can do that, but no one can truly do it. That's why the message of Jesus, although so hard to follow, it turns out that that is the best way to live. Because here's what Jesus taught. He taught us self-denial, not self-fulfillment. Self-fulfillment is about getting what you want, being what you want to be, and doing what you want to do. Self-fulfillment is unrestrained gratification of your own desires, appetites, and emotions. Jesus never preached about self-fulfillment. Instead, he preached self-denial, the voluntary restraint of one's own desires, pleasures, or needs for the betterment of other people, including the betterment of you. Jesus didn't just teach this, he also modeled it. Last week, if you were here, we talked about Peter, and we talked about when his name was changed from Simon to Peter, and he was now the rock. Right after this, in Matthew, we'll see in verse 21, Matthew 16, that he starts to talk to Peter again. And now that they all know that he is the Messiah, here's what Jesus lets all of his followers know. It says this, verse 21. From that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and on the third day be raised again. The disciples hear this, and they don't like this. They don't like what this, because this isn't what they thought the Messiah would be. They just confessed he's the Messiah. Well, you can't die. The Messiah can't die. The Messiah is the king. He needs to rule. You can't die. Verse 22, Peter decides, hey, as the rock, I'm going to step up and say something. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, rebuking Jesus. Never, Lord, he said, this shall never happen to you. Jesus, this is not how the Messiah operates. We believe you're the Messiah. The Messiah doesn't do this. The Messiah doesn't die. The Messiah doesn't sacrifice. The Messiah doesn't let anyone else take over. That's not what the Messiah does. You don't give up your life. You're the Messiah. We believe you are. You don't give up your life. Peter has great intentions here. He really does. He has good intentions. He doesn't want Jesus to die. These are good intentions. He's like, I believe you're the Messiah, and you can't die. That's great intentions. But what is Peter trying to do here? He's trying to control what Jesus does for what he believes the Messiah is supposed to do. So what is Peter pushing for? Self-fulfillment. This is the way. It's about fulfilling yourself. And look how Jesus responds to Peter, verse 23. Jesus turned and said to Peter, get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns. So again, what is the Satanist view? Do what thou wilt. Be true to yourself. Follow your heart. That's not the way of Jesus. That's the way of Satan. And Jesus doesn't mince words here. Peter, you are acting like Satan by doing this. Peter, get behind me, Satan. In acting in self-fulfillment, you are acting like that. So then Jesus makes it crystal clear. If you want to follow Jesus, this is the way. So for all of us in the room that confess to be a follower of Jesus or interested in becoming one, this is the way you follow him. He makes it clear. Then Jesus said to his disciples, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. We misunderstand this claim a lot, I think. A lot of times we look at this as like medicine that we don't really like to drink, but we force it down because we know it's going to make us feel better. And this only confuses the purpose behind and makes it way too lightly. Jesus didn't describe self-denial as a bitter pill you have to swallow. He describes it as death. That's how he describes it. Josh Porter says it this way: self-denial is not trust me, it's good for you medicine, but a scary and painful dying by which we learn what it means to live. And Jesus did it first. You want to follow Jesus? Do what Jesus demonstrated. Deny yourself, pick up your cross, and follow him. See, in Jesus' view, everyone is going to have to die. The cross has been synonymous for faith for us for a long time. But back in the first century, they did not see the cross the same way we see the cross. The cross was not a symbol of hope in the first century. It was a symbol of pain and death for a criminal, meant to embarrass them and prevent anyone else from also committing that crime. So imagine if a mother's son commits a murder, and he is taken and he is executed by the electric chair. And that mother, to honor their son, wears a necklace of an electric chair around. That's what the cross was in the first century. Ancient Roman writers would describe crucifixion as a most cruel and disgusting punishment. Went on to say, "What shall I say of crucifixion? So guilty an action cannot by any possibility be adequately expressed by any name bad enough for it." Crucifixion was designed to take as long as possible, be as embarrassing as impossible, and be as painful as possible. In fact, the root word for excruciating comes from out of crucifying. And Jesus says, if you want to follow me, pick up your cross, because that's where we're going. Deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me, because everyone is going to have to die. It's very hard for us to ever conceive of a happy and fulfilled life that does not include getting everything we want. We fear that if we don't get what we want or what we think we want, then we must be less human. And not only is self-denial in our current culture unpopular, it's actually perceived as hateful and evil. If you can't obtain what you desire, then you can't be actually happy, and you can't be completely fulfilled. You can't fulfill your entire personhood unless you get what you fully desire. Everything in our culture screams that self-denial is oppression and that self-fulfillment is the only way for happiness and truth. And yet, Jesus said the complete opposite. He said, nope, you deny yourself. You take up your cross, and follow me. Everyone is going to have to die. Then Jesus takes it a step further to make sure you understood the point. Verse 25, for whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. So if you decide to follow Jesus on the road of self-denial, something very strange happens. You die, but then you're reborn. You die to your old self, and you are made new. I think back to the day that Brooklyn was born. I remember the night that my wife went into labor. She woke me up at like 3 in the morning, and I was going through this, so I didn't really know what the plan was. But she woke me up and said, hey, I'm in labor, and I started freaking out. Because I assume it's going to happen like within minutes. I'm like, oh gosh, I don't want to happen in this room, and I don't want to do it in the car. I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm like getting the bags, and my wife is kind of taking her time. And I remember going up to the room, bags are packed, car's ready, we're ready to go, and I'm just sitting there waiting, and she's putting her earring on. And I don't know how long it was, probably 10 seconds. It felt like 3 hours. She was trying to put it on. She dropped it on. I was like, woman, get in the car. I don't want to give birth in the car. We speed to the hospital, and then 12 hours later, it started, right? But when my first daughter was born, something changed. I had an old me that was not a father, and now I have a new me that is a father. My identity changed. So now I was a father, but I still remembered my pre-father life. But in my pre-father life, the old ways that I used to live they don't make sense now because I'm a father. So the ways I used to operate simply do not make sense to my new identity. But sometimes I would go back to my pre-father ways, but it didn't make me not a father anymore. I just wasn't operating in my identity of who I actually was. If you are a follower of Jesus, you have what the New Testament would call your old self. Your old self. It is another person that masquerades as the real you. But the old self is insecure. The old self needs people's approval. It obsesses over money and possessions and success. It constantly puts on a show for other people. It gossips about people, tearing them down so that you can build yourself up. It refuses generosity because it believes it's entitled to what it has, and it is afraid to slow down because it needs to achieve. Or it's lazy because it's afraid to get up. Your old self served a master. It just wasn't Christ. Your old self's master were your old desires. You were at mercy to whatever they wanted, for better or for worse. But spiritual formation is dying to your old ways and dying to your old master in pursuit of the new ways and the new master. If you want to save your life, according to Jesus, you're going to lose it. But if you lose your life for my sake, that's when you will find it. So when it comes to every single one of us, whether we believe in this or not, Jesus says we have two options. Here are our two options, the only two options we have. One, we can accept self and follow your heart. That's an option. Do whatever makes you happy. Be true to yourself, the self that you choose, of course, not the self you didn't choose, which is also yourself. But you chose one self, that's fine. But accept yourself, follow your heart. And you can do it. You can make it all about self. And the rest of your life, you will be chasing a carrot that you're always so close to getting, but you'll never actually get. You'll spend your whole life chasing after it, believing that once you finally get it, you'll finally be whole and complete, and then you'll find out you never actually achieve it. Desire is always unfulfilled. It's a bottomless pit. You will be dissatisfied, disintegrated, ruled by your desires, and enslaved by what you want. Whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But if you lose your life you will lose it to the constant pursuit of desire that will never stop. That's your choice. Accept self, follow your heart. Or according to Jesus, the only other option is deny self, follow Jesus. If you want to follow Jesus, it's what it's going to take. Deny self. And that's it. That's everyone's two options. It isn't that your desires are always or inherently bad. That's not the point in following Jesus. It's that we are really bad at ordering our desires. Imagine a life of your desires rightly ordered according to the way of Jesus. When we order our good desires correctly, we learn to see everything good as a gift. Gratitude just becomes a way of life. We learn to see other people, from your friends to your enemies, all as objects of God's affection, so we treat them accordingly. And in this option is the only way to truly follow the master. In this option is the only way to become how God made you. And this option is the only way for you to find true life. But it's harder. It's the harder option. It goes against what we all feel like we want. But according to Jesus, it's the only way to get life. Dallas Willard says it this way. He says, the overall settled condition of life in the kingdom of God, better described as death to self. In this and this alone lies the key to the soul's restoration. Christian spiritual formation rests on the indispensable foundation of death to self and cannot proceed except insofar as that foundation is being firmly laid and sustained. Life to the fullest, as Jesus offers, can only be achieved through self-denial. Everyone's going to have to die. So how do we do this? How do we actually start to live this out? It's actually easy, but it's also very hard. Obedience is how you follow. You want to follow Christ in self-denial? It's obedience. Obedience is how you do it. As an apprentice following the master, you say to Christ, if that's what you say to do, I'll do it. If that's where you say to go, I'll go. Even if I don't understand it completely, that's what I'll do, because you are the master, I am the apprentice. Every single one of us is broken. Every single one of us has something that we need to die to. Every single one of us has something we need to be obedient to. We all have our different struggles. For you, it might be the constant need of approval, that you're always concerned about your looks, you're concerned about what people say online, you live through that. And for you, that's what you need to die to, because everyone has to die. And in obedience, you are called to die to your need for approval. Maybe that's not you. You don't struggle with approval, but you struggle with greed. And you just want to have as much as possible because you're worried if you don't have as much as possible, then you're going to lose it one day. You need to make sure you have everything, and you can't be generous because you have so much stuff. Everyone has to die. And in obedience, you might be called to die to your need for wealth. Maybe you don't struggle with greed. Like, you're actually a pretty generous person, but you do struggle with worry. You're constantly worried about everything. And you know that your worry is not just normal. It's a worry that you know is saying, I don't know if I trust God fully with my worry. Everyone has to die. And in obedience, you are called to die to your worries. Maybe you don't worry, but you lust. And there are certain things that you look at, you know you should not look at. You are crossing boundaries you know you shouldn't be crossing. Everyone has to die. And in obedience, you are called to die to your sexual desires. I don't know what it is for everyone. Here's what I know. We all have something that we need to say, God, I'm surrendering it to you. God wants obedience because he wants you to have life. God isn't after blind obedience because he's just a rule monger, but because he is a loving father. I mean, think of a loving parent with a child. If you have kids, you know, but children, especially when they're really young, kids want to do what they want to do. And if you let them, they would live off of candy, sleep as late as possible, play all day, and never shower, right? That's what all kids would do because that's what they want to do. But what does a loving parent do? A loving parent knows, you know what, you can't live this way because it's actually going to hurt you and harm you. So a loving parent implements discipline and imposes limitations. And if the child only acts based off their desires, they will hurt themselves and they will hurt others. The kids don't understand how or why that's going to happen, but if the child sees their parents as loving and sees their parents as someone they can trust, even when they don't understand it, they will actually grow into the people that they are called to be. Here's a simpler way to put it that Josh Porter wrote in his book, Death to Deconstruction. God gets mad when his kids touch the stove. Not because he feels strongly about the stove being touched, but because he doesn't want his children to get burned. And what do we want to do? We all want to touch the stove. We all want to. And because we want to touch the stove, we start to question, does God really love me? Because what kind of God would say I can't touch the stove? You know what? If God really loved me, he would allow me to touch the stove. And I would tell you, God does really love you. And God loves you so much, he does allow you to touch the stove. He never imposes his relational love on those who want nothing to do with it. But if you want to know God, if you want to follow God, if you want to hear from God, if you are as the apprentice want to follow the master, you will have to obey when God tells you to obey. Obedience to the will of God is the way to the knowledge of God. Self-fulfillment says, hey, it's your right to touch the stove. And if you want to touch the stove, you touch it all you want, and it's actually, no one can tell you not to touch the stove. Where self-denial says, even when I want to touch the stove, I trust that there's a reason God doesn't want me to, so I'm not going to. I'm going to deny my desire to do it so that I can follow him. Another quote from Josh Porter says, the pain and the discomfort of self-denial becomes the ways we learn what it means to walk in the joyful freedom of wanting what God wants. It's a hard ask. It is hard to die to things that you want to do in order to obey God. But God didn't just tell you to do it. He modeled it. He showed us. He did it first. So I'm going to close today's sermon with an analogy that's in the book that I really enjoyed. And then afterwards, we're going to take communion together. Then we'll get ready to eat together. And again, I hope everyone can stick around for it. But here's the analogy. A 12-year-old boy walks into a boxing gym. And inside, he sees punching bags, he sees rings, he sees other people that are practicing. And this 12-year-old boy's never done it before, but he walks in because he wants to learn. He wants to become a boxer one day. So he walks in, and a coach walks by him and goes, hey, so what are you looking for? And the 12-year-old boy says, I'm looking for a coach, but I don't have any money. I can't really afford to come here. I don't know what I'm doing. So the coach, with grace in his eyes, says, you know what? I'll take care of the gym fee, and I will train you for free. All you have to do is listen. I will give you instructions on what you need to do. And I promise, if you listen, you will become that boxer you want to become. But it's going to be hard. It's going to take sacrifice. It's going to take denying things that you want to do that everyone else is doing. But if you do it and listen, you will become the boxer you want to become. So the coach tells the boy to get into a fighting stance, and he does. And then the coach, with just 2 fingers, pokes him on the shoulder, and he falls down immediately. Goes, do it again. Does it again. Then the coach draws an imaginary line around the boy, says, all right, put your feet like this in this imaginary square. When he goes to do it, he has a stance. He doesn't actually stumble. To people outside the gym, they wouldn't understand what that imaginary line looks like because it doesn't make any sense. But to this boy, he knows once I started thinking about that, I was able to stand. So he takes that imaginary box around with him, knowing that, hey, it actually worked. I didn't stumble. The coach taught me something. So the training the 12-year-old boy learns requires him to deny himself in ways that other people who are not training simply do not have to do. He can't eat what other people have to eat. He can't sleep when other people are sleeping. He'll have to use his time differently than everybody else who's not training will use their time. His hands will be bruised in ways that other people's hands aren't because they aren't training. And there will be times where he doesn't want to do it. But he has to deny what he wants in order to train because he wants to become a boxer. He will see other young men who started training at one point, and they gave up. Say, you know what, I got sick of not eating what everyone else is eating. I got sick of not sleeping when everyone else is sleeping. I got sick of using my time here. I wanted to use it like everybody else. So he would see other people who started the journey who eventually left. No one outside the gym will ever understand the training. Not really. Why should they? They aren't training. And the boy and his coach aren't going to walk around to non-boxers and shame them for not training. They never signed up to train. So they're not going to shame them for eating what they eat or sleeping when they sleep because they never signed up for it. To non-boxers, the language in the gym wouldn't make sense, and the sacrifices would have no purpose. And to some of the boys' friends, the boys' training will be confusing and an inconvenience to them. Hey, why don't you come and eat what we eat? Hey, why don't you spend time with us? How come you always go home early to go to sleep? Hey, I know you don't like training sometimes. Why don't you stop the training and come do what we are doing? Some of the friends in the boy's life will be threatened by his dedication to training. His passion for training will become a painful spotlight to their own laziness and will chastise his focus as a young life wasted. There are people that say to the young boy, you don't know what you're missing out here. You don't know the freedom that's out here that's not when you don't train. You don't know what it's like. You actually are not living the fullest life because you are not out here. But the boy saw a coach who sacrificed for him. The boy has a coach who paid for him to be trained. And the boy has a goal to become a boxer. He's an apprentice that's training under the master. So he understands denying is part of the training. If I want to be the person I want to be, and if I want to follow the master, I have to deny myself. You have two choices in life, self-fulfillment or self-denial. Self-fulfillment is the easier option. It's what most people do. But it will never end. It will never be enough. You will always be lacking. Or you can choose self-denial. You can choose to die. And the master, as you choose daily to train and to die to yourself, the master promises you're going to find life. So what's your choice? So if you get ready to close, we're going to get ready to take communion together, and then we're going to sing this brand new song. The worship team, you can start coming on up. This brand new song that talks about the altar. If you read the Old Testament, before Jesus' death, when they would sin, they would take things, have to sacrifice it to the altar. Then after Jesus' ultimate death and resurrection, we can now live in that freedom of life by simply following him. And in this song, it's going to talk about how you are called to take things to the altar. That's things that you need to die to. All of us have it. All of us have things that we need to deny ourselves to die so that we can follow the master. As you're ready to take communion here, we have an open table, which means you do not have to be an owner of this church. This doesn't have to be your church home in order to take communion. We invite all of you to take it. We just ask that you be a follower of Jesus, that you say that I want to follow him. And if you haven't made that decision and you would like to, this is a way for you to do that. So I'm going to pray. After I pray, I invite you to go and grab your elements and come back and just take a seat. We will take it together, so don't take it until we lead you in that. And while you're sitting there, I want you to think and ask God, what is the thing that I need to deny? What is it that I have to die to? Because everyone has to die, and that includes me. So let me pray for us. Dear God, thank you for being the God who modeled to us what true love looks like, who showed us the way to life. And dear God, I pray that you convict each one of us as we get ready to take communion together, to reflect on the death that you had on the cross, to remind us that we all have something that we have to die to too. That you called each one of us to pick up our cross and follow you. That you promise us hope and grace and true life. And that there will be times that it is hard. But I pray that you give us the confidence and the wisdom and the courage to continue to follow you, to continue to follow the Master. Thank you for your death and your resurrection. Thank you for this time that we have to celebrate that and to reflect on what it is you are calling each one of us to die to. Thank you for your love. In your Son's name, Amen.